Good morning and thank you everyone at day 3 of Bridges 2025. We start with a great panel. I'd like to introduce the panelists. We have Loveleen Arun, who's the founder and director of Panache World. Loveleen is a pioneer in crafting high-end experiential journeys that spotlight India's cultural depth and artistic heritage. With over 2 decades of experience, she has positioned Panache World as a curator of bespoke luxury travel that goes beyond the ordinary. Her commitment to story-driven itineraries and her collaborations with boutique hotels and heritage homes across India, and has made her a key figure in the conscious travel movement. She's widely recognized for advocating immersive, slow, and responsible tourism tailored for the discerning Indian and the global traveler. Then we have, not in order, Philippa Kaye. Is a widely respected South Asian destination expert with a particular focus on India and Nepal. As one of rare India's UK consultants, she bridges inbound travel design with outbound expectations, helping boutique hospitality brands tell compelling stories to Western audiences. Her intimate knowledge of subcontinent nuances and traveler psychology has made her a sought-after voice in destination representation and brand positioning. With decades of on-ground experience, she brings sharp insights into what global travelers seek from India boutique and sustainable properties. Thank you, Philippa. Then we have Mohan Narayanaswamy, who's the founder and director of TravelScope India Private Limited. Mohan leads TravelScope, one of India's most respected experiential travel companies. He's credited with transforming heritage, art, and nature-based travel into curated, deep personal experiences for the global traveler. Under his leadership, TravelScope has built a reputation for connecting travelers to India's living traditions through artisans, historians, naturalists, and local hosts. Mohan's philosophy centers around journeys of understanding, making him a strong voice in the sustainable tourism movement. And finally, we have Choegyal. He's a leading global advocate of ecotourism and sustainable travel with over 4 decades of work in Nepal and South Asia. She also serves as the honorary counsel of New Zealand into Nepal, and she is a long-time strategic advisor of the Tiger Mountain Pokhara Lodge, a flagship in community-inclusive tourism. She has consulted with various international agencies and authored several publications on conservation-based tourism. So with this panel, they have deep experience on the topic that is on hand, which is really the changing dynamics of travel experiences and balancing global expectations on ground realities. And one very important aspect of this is how the growth of the Indian domestic market and how it is altering or integrating with the global inbound experiential traveler. So it's with that context, I'd like to open the floor with Loveleen. If you could, what are the changes that you have seen in the last 5 to 10 years with the growth of the domestic discerning traveler, and that dynamic, if you could give some insights into it.
So it's been a fabulous journey designing itineraries for the Indian traveler who has gotten evolved over time. 5 or 10 years ago, the usual itineraries that would happen would be the mountains, because we love to escape to the colder climates, and the hotels that were being offered in those destinations were, just run-of-the-mill. People were just happy to have a hotel in the mountains and, just do the ordinary. However, as the economy grew and as people started growing from here and tasting the world, they got more and more nuanced, and Indians are very quick learners and very quick appreciators of good things in life. So whilst they did all the Londons and the Parises and the Milans and, the usual, they also went into the smaller towns. They understand what good food, good wine, good experiences, talking to a historian, all of that. And they came back, and actually they found a lack of either acceptance by the hotels in India for their taste or their want for that same experience, or they just didn't find those products in India, or they were not open. There were several factors. And this one thing in our industry, I think we got very lucky with COVID, when we were all locked in. And that is the time when it was very easy for people like us to say, listen, why don't you go try this boutique hotel in the mountains or in the plains or in Rajasthan or wherever. And it was brilliant what the hotels did back. Some of the hotels, there was resistance. There was just this automatic off in their minds when they had to serve an Indian client. But when they saw what they were demanding was almost on par with what their global audiences were demanding, it was just a beautiful sort of build up on both sides. And the clients wanted more, and they were like, are there any more places like this? And then you go, yes, would you like to go for more? And then what has happened now is that even though the borders opened up, both on the industry side as well as on the client side, for the shorter duration where they would escape to a Dubai or a senseless, just a food and experience tour to Bangkok or to Dubai or to Sri Lanka. Now they want to know, okay, where else can you send me in India? And it's just a pleasure to see both sides of this game coming together.
So Mohan, you have seen an industry for 40 years, maybe more, 45, I don't know. So now, and you've catered to a specific inbound, the high-end traveler. Now they are dealing with the Indian travelers, many of these hoteliers and the travelers themselves. What's the feedback that you've been getting?
So, I have been doing, experiential, immersive travel for about 25 years now. And right from the time we started, we've been focusing on more offbeat destinations for our inbound guests. What I have seen now, particularly post the pandemic, and I've also traveled quite a bit during the pandemic, and I was in many destinations, and I saw there was, there is a big inflow of domestic travelers, discovering our own backyards, and that's what happened in most countries, I guess. Yes, it has been challenging, from a hotelier side as well as, from our perspective, because we have to balance a lot of things when we create a travel itinerary for a client, keeping in mind, the fact that the domestic travel is not really winding down. Contrary to what we thought, that once COVID is over, people will start going abroad. It is still going abroad, I'm not denying it, but a lot of people are still traveling within India, and that is here to stay. And like Loveleen said, that I think COVID was a time when people realized that what a treasure that we are sitting, in our country, and they do want more. But also the domestic travelers come with certain, expectations and, certain, habits of how they start a day, and for example, if let's say an inbound guest has, breakfast at 7, most of the, families would probably want breakfast around 9:30 or 10. So it's kind of a challenge for the hotels to kind of cater to both. Sometimes their staff are, working probably, double shifts to cater to that. That said, what I'm experiencing now is, I'll give you some recent examples of, I was, with a bunch of advisors from the US, and we were on a fam trip. And what I realized, I'll give you an example. We were at the fort in Agra. And the crowds in our monuments are swelling. It is a challenging task to manage things. You got to make sure that, we start timing our visits to places where we take them to, particularly the monuments and the sites at a time when there are less people. But even that is also becoming a challenge. The other thing is, this is a problem, in our country. When we are in monuments, there is this relentless pursuit to take selfies, to take photographs, and sometimes I even notice that, people are, at a distance, silently taking photos and videos of, visitors. I think an element of sensitization is required, because people are coming here for, exploring, and, you can't just take their attention away from what a guide is telling to, what someone else is doing. And it happened. That's, I'm not saying this without reason. One of my clients or the participants on the trip was a little kind of feeling awkward. And anyway, I literally had to play the role of a marshal standing there telling people to, keep away. But that's not the answer. I mean, it's also, it's rude to tell people, not to do something. And so that's one thing. And so managing things is going to be, it's become a challenge, and it will continue to be a challenge in how we program our itineraries. The second thing I would say is that spend more time and visit less destinations. That is something that we should be mindful of, particularly when we are in the bigger cities like Delhi or Jaipur or, I don't know, Mumbai. That also allows you to some element of flexibility in the way you kind of tailor things for your guests, and then give them activities which takes them away from the highlights, or gives them additional time to explore things that are more hands-on. It could be an activity. It could be an hands-on workshop or something which kind of also gives them an opportunity to learn about our arts and crafts or culture, cuisine. There is so much to kind of offer as a destination, and keep them busy, and I think any traveler who does something very unique, something very experiential, I think there's an element of satisfaction which I have seen in people, be it, let's say, you take them to do some block printing to some studio somewhere, and I've seen the creative best that comes out of people, and I think that's far more satisfying than history lessons, which are important. I'm not taking it away from anyone. So yeah, those are some things that I wanted to kind of put out there. Yeah.
I think the impact of the mobile phone has been, earlier they used to talk about things, now that's a way of potential harassment that didn't exist like 20 years ago.
I didn't want to use that word, but it amounts to that, actually.
Yeah, and Philippa, you kind of have two legs in two countries. You're like William Dalrymple, they say. So I'd love to get your perspective. How have you seen the engaging with the UK tour operators, as well as what kind of feedback are they coming back with the travelers who's coming to India?
I think, is that working? Yeah. I think what I've noticed in particular.
And before that, just because I'd like to get the hotelier's perspective also at some point. So I will be again putting the hoteliers on the spot and getting your take. Please go ahead.
I think for me, I've been traveling the last 18 months or so quite extensively throughout India, and what I've noticed from pre-COVID days to now, with the rise of the domestic traveller, but also with how cities are changing. Cities are now becoming really big and really busy and really crowded, not just in terms of tourism. And I think all these that element needs to be factored into itinerary planning. Plus, you've got monuments which are now, heaving with people. When we were chatting prior to this, we were saying a few years ago you could do a sunrise visit to the Taj Mahal and your clients would virtually be the only people there. Now you're literally running a gauntlet of touts, and then you've got 400 people waiting to be the first person in the Taj at 5 in the morning. So monuments have become really, really busy. Cities have become really, really busy. And I think what's happening now is people are just getting overwhelmed. India is overwhelming anyway. It's loud and becoming more loud day by day. Yes, it's colourful and vibrant and brash, but it's very overwhelming for a particularly a first-time traveller or people who haven't been so many times. And a lot of the work I do when working with travel companies and planning itineraries, I think what you really have to realise is what works on paper doesn't work on the ground. You can look at an itinerary and you go, lovely, drive 5 hours, get there, check into your hotel, full day sightseeing, leave the next day. The reality of that, stop it. The reality of that is, you drive for 5 hours, Then you've got to navigate your way through a city. You just about have time for your evening meal. The next day, you're battling not just travel to get to your monuments because the traffic is now so much busier. You're then battling people at monuments. So it becomes a really, really hectic program. So, I mean, I've always advocated for doing more, slowing travel down. But I think now with how busy cities have become, how busy monuments have become, that really has to be an important factor. And then, it's something, is getting to know your client more. And we're talking about this, and it's very easy when you're on a one-to-one situation, chatting to a client. A tour operator can chat to a client and advise them. The pushback I get a lot of the time when I'm doing, itinerary planning and training with travel companies is, but this is what the clients want. They want to fit all these destinations into an itinerary. They've only got 3 weeks. It's up to you as the people who've seen it and been on the ground to, find out a bit more about them, find out about what their interests and hobbies are, but also to advise them that, India is now becoming, we're nearly 1.5 billion now people. It's becoming a really, really busy destination. So I think advising them that, to slow it down, to have more time, as Mohan said, do more experiences in cities that, bring in more of the local communities, but give people a chance to peel back the layers of the city and find out what makes that place tick beyond just a fort or a palace, but also taking them to more offbeat destinations. We were saying that, because of Kumbh Mela, places like Varanasi and Agra and Ayodhya have been absolutely heaving. We went down to Gwalior, stunning fort, nobody there. So again, it's working in other more offbeat destinations that can give people that really lovely experience of India that, we all started offering 25 years ago.
Lisa, your thoughts on how this is?
We have a rather different situation in Nepal. We're wanting to attract more tourists, more quality tourists. Indians are super important, always have been, for Nepal. They account for always around 1/3 of all our visitors. Of course, a lot of that is VFR and business. But in terms of producing products that the Indian market are looking for, we've seen some really dramatic changes in travel, and I'm sure you, and with your operations, have seen the same here. We're seeing Indians get much more active. It's hard to get the stats in Nepal because Indians kind of blend into the Nepal in terms of national park and trekking statistics, but more and more Indians visiting Nepal to trek. We've, in the last couple of years, we had a really terrible COVID in Nepal. Unlike you in India, we had no span of markets, of domestic markets, that could respond. And I mean, it was really, I think India's got to be one of the most successful countries in the world that had such huge markets that were able to move around India and keep all your operations going. We had a really kind of devastating stop. All the flights stopped, all the domestic flights stopped, all the border was closed. So we basically had no tourists for, 1.5 years with very severe lockdowns. So we lost a lot of our industry, we lost a lot of our trained people. At Tiger Mountain Pokhara Lodge, we were able to retain our staff by paying them all the way through, but I have to say we were one of the very, very few operations in Nepal that did that. So it's been a big problem. The recovery has been a big issue for us. We're still not back up to 2019 numbers. Mind you, nor is India, nor is Asia Pacific. Asia Pacific's actually the least recovered of all areas, interestingly enough, only 87% recovery. So there is work to be done on that, as well as, obviously spreading the impacts around. But what has happened in Nepal, which is going to be relevant to you, and I know there's quite a few of us from Nepal here, is that we have finally managed, since the insurgency, the 10-year civil war that we had in the late 90s to mid-2006, we finally managed to establish, or to begin to establish, the destination as an upmarket, fashionable place to go, like it was in the 70s and 80s, in the good old days, as it were, before before the insurgency. So that has been achieved with a number of really good high-end hotels and destinations, a lot of publicity, a lot of work going into promotion and bringing in photographers and media and influencers and AI. So that's our challenge, is to get in more people and especially spread the segments to the luxury end and to create itineraries working with you guys and your amazing properties in India. Thank you.
And Loveleen, one of the things that you had mentioned in our discussions yesterday, and to your point about experiences becoming more important, but you're not able to monetize the experiences from an agent perspective, right? Suppose suppose the experience is costing in 10,000 rupees, but you're only being able to but you're trying to sell the experience. Do you see that changing, or is that becoming important, to Mohan's point and Philippa's point about the experiences?
So this is something, it's very specific to the hoteliers. Due to the changing face of how the industry is changing, it's very, as important as the room and food in your hotel is the experiences that you offer. And these experiences sometimes, and that's where the difference between a good hotel today, a good hotel and a okay place comes into the picture. When you go to a hotel website and there's this little drop-down menu that says experiences, and it doesn't go beyond a cooking demonstration or a walk around the property, or 2 or 3 things they've been put because they need to be put. And then there are other hotels that have these long list of really well curated experiences for the clients. And that really is what makes you a hotel of choice or not for the evolved traveler, not just from India, but from anywhere in the world. And hotels that sort of put their kind of efforts into it, all aspects, but this is one of the most important aspects, and more so for hotels which are in offbeat areas. Because in Delhi, as a travel designer, I would have a lot of access to experts, to guides, to other things where I can sort of add in experiences. But let's say you're a small hotel in Madhya Pradesh, or you're somewhere in Karnataka. I have to depend on your local expertise, and you would know the nuances of your region. Now, and mind you, the way I look at it is that if whatever is your hotel price per night, I think experiences right up to 30% of that room night, people will still buy. So if you're selling a room for 20,000 rupees, and if your experience is even 7,000 to 8,000 rupees per person, don't hesitate, build it. People will buy. And people like us would love to weave it into the itineraries, because now people want to say, I went here and I did this. It's no longer about just, I went and I saw this monument, or I'm going there because there's a fort over there. Everybody does that. So what is it that you did different, and how did the hotel enable you to do this really lovely thing? However, where hotels go a little bit sort of making these experiences accessible not only to the end client but to us, where people say, I made these experiences but they didn't sell. The reason is you haven't been clear on the offering. Things like, will I be able to take my old mother on this experience? Will my kids be able to stand through? The durations are not mentioned. The accessibility is not mentioned. And it's people like us who are making this itinerary and answering those questions. And it's a lot of work to actually weave these experiences and get people to have a buy-in before they've even traveled there. So of course, fam trips are one of the easiest things to do. I mean, a lot of hotels take you on these fams, they show you the experience, and then you become that ambassador and you sell it. But if not, then hotels need to have these really beautiful PDFs that you can send to all of us in the room who are travel designers, or, so that we have everything clear. And then what happens is that, so let's say the hotels build in earnings or commissions on your room and food. That's the old way of doing it. What about me putting out my neck and saying, no, do this experience? You all have put in your money to build it. I am putting my effort to sell it, and my travel designers are sitting and calling, okay, what time can they start? Can they start? The other day there was a client of mine, we were just doing a guava farm picnic. The questions that we got was, how big is the guava tree? She wanted to know if it was shaded enough. And that's the kind of work that goes in to sell an experience, because she was also spending 40,000 rupees for that picnic, for her kids, for infant kids who wouldn't have cared about that guava hotel. But that's what goes into it. So think about incentivizing your travel advisors and having them a buy-in into these experiences, because it overall enhances the offering for everybody, the client, the hotel, us, and everyone else.
Before I became an entrepreneur, I used to head Asia Pacific for a travel research company called Focusrite, where we looked at many of these companies like Viator and all who build these tech platforms, which were selling experiences and built huge billion-dollar valuations.
Yeah.
But they were smaller ticket items, not
Yeah.
the kind of experiences. So for the international inbound traveler, have you seen that kind of where you're able to generate revenues from experiences for the travel designers?
You see, Loveleen's perspective is a little different because she's more on one-on-one with her clients.
Yeah.
We are more B2B, I
Yeah.
would say. We have a very small part which is B2C, but most of it's B2B. So we have the task of educating the other business on the other side to sell, and then all the information that they need to transmit to the end client. See, I always believe that the basics are very important. We may go and sell a lot of stuff, but if the logistics of that experience on the ground, right? If those are not taken care, a great experience could just go bad like within minutes of it starting, right? Now, we work with a lot of partners, so there could be companies that are doing experiential or immersive tours in cities. I mean, let's say, just for the sake of giving a name, No Footprints, for example, right? So we collaborate with them. Then there are other companies like that we work with. But then everything that we sell, we try it ourselves. Not everything on that list is sellable to a client. So therefore, you got to be very careful of what you are, selling to who. One thing may work for one client, but the same thing may not work for another client. As far as the monetization is concerned, listen, it's part of what we offer, right? So therefore, even if we get a small percentage out of it, it's fine. I'm assuring that that experience goes well. It is something that a client, would appreciate at the end of the day, and also making sure that the logistics of it is taken care, and right from the beginning to the end, it all flows well. And at the end of the day, the client feels that yes, what TravelScope suggested to me was worth it, And I think that's the goal. I mean, if let's say somebody benefits out of what I'm selling, right? I'm happy to do that. It's not a question of making money out of it. Okay. Yes, we're all here running a business. We want to make money, but we also have to be very, realistic about it. Can I go across India and create experiences? No, I cannot. I have a job to do. My job is to work with all these people, create amazing experiences for our clients, fully knowing what we are selling to who. And in that, if it is benefiting, let's say a large number of people, whether it's the company which is offering that experience, or the people who are working for them, or going a little deeper into the communities which are benefiting, I think we've done our job.
Philippa, your thoughts on this?
Sorry, remind me of the question.
No, the question was about the experiences being part and being able to generate value and able to monetize the experience part of it.
Again, it's different when because I'm sort of working with multiple tour operators and training and destinations. So I don't think there's a direct monetization that can happen. Certainly not for me as a consultant. I think for tour operators, the way that the general sort of market works is on a sort of markup percentage of the trip. So for them, working itineraries in and the overall cost increases slightly. But I think also in them knowing the hotels, knowing which hotels provide really good experiences and making sure their clients have the best experience that they can have in that hotel, working in those experiences, and it's the reason a lot of people will go to a particular hotel, then they have clients who have an amazing experience that leads to referral, repeat business, and that kind of thing. So, not a direct monetization from the experiences, but a hotel that is really good, that provides those experiences, that gives clients that overall wow factor, is going to result in people coming back to try more of the same in different places. But the reason I was a bit, I've forgotten the question, is that my brain had gone somewhere else when Mohan was talking, and I think a really interesting part of this discussion is where you do have a lot of Indian clients in a hotel with your international clients as well, and how that mix is working and how hotels are coping with that. And I think, at the start when the increase of the domestic traveller, a lot of hotels really struggled because it is a very different market and they weren't wanting the same kind of experience. And I think even now it's how do you make sure that out of the domestic client you're attracting the right kind of domestic client to your property. So I was in a place a couple of weeks ago in Goa, and it's completely off the grid. And I just said, I said to them, how do you make sure that you avoid the guys who are wanting to come here and booze up and blast out the music, and because that is a big part of the domestic travel as well. And they just said it's easy. We make it very clear on the website. There's no room service, no air conditioning, and no televisions. And then you kind of automatically are eliminating a certain kind of the type of client, so you're attracting more of the kind of client who will then get on with the international client. And a couple of the hotels actually said this to me yesterday. They said, look, we set up with these principles, we set up with these ideals in mind of what we want to offer, but we're finding that the people coming in are insisting that we serve meat or insisting that we play music or whatever. And how can we avoid that and work to avoid that and make sure we attract the right clients? And I think it's, having the courage to be discerning in the bookings that you accept, which is really hard when you're a startup and you're wanting business. But, also making sure your storytelling and your messaging is right from the word go, so that people fully understand what they're coming to, and so you don't get your ghetto blaster boozy crowd ending up at a really lovely remote, off the grid location.
I think that's a very important point, communicating the framework of that. So Lisa, I wanted your thoughts. Now I'm going to put all four of you before I kind of go to the audience also. What is the one thing that has surprised you in travel in the last 2-3 years, which has kind of given you a waha moment? Just love to get your thoughts.
I think I'm going to target that question to what we're here supposed to be talking about, as opposed to my wow moment. But seriously, what I'm really interested to see, and I think has been very dramatic, is the change in the Indian travel characteristics, the changes in the Indian market. I mean, I've said we're seeing it a bit in Nepal. We don't have very good data research, but we are seeing high-end Indians spending huge amounts of money on helicopters and champagne breakfasts and staying in Shintamanis as well as staying in our properties. And so we're beginning to be able to spread the segments and to be, as Philippa was saying, attracting the right Indian segments to the right products. And of course, Nepal along the border, and especially the Lumbini area, where we've got tens of millions of Indians with disposable income, there's a lot of very targeted resorts coming up along the border, which makes loads of sense for Nepal. I thought that you'd be interested, perhaps if I just quickly share some of the findings of the New Zealand tourism, who have done a huge amount of research and analysis on this. As you know, the New Zealand Prime Minister was here last week. India's a major market for New Zealand, not just in tourism, but also education and trade. But New Zealand thinks it's doing really well. Indians are in the top 5 arrivals with 87,000, which actually doesn't sound like an awful lot to me, in 2024. could be a lot more. Half of those are VFR, and they record less, just over a quarter actually coming on holiday, although, of course, we never really trust those purpose of visit stats. But what really interested me, my wow moment, was why Indians want to come to New Zealand. And because we haven't sort of seen this before, I think this is, again, maybe a post-COVID reaction, an appreciation of personal service and nature. But 100% of Indians coming to New Zealand said that they were coming because they wanted to walk, hike, trek, or tramp. I mean, that to me is absolutely amazing. It's very, it's a whole different sort of way of looking at the Indian market, which is clearly maturing and, becoming, as we know, a kind of global force. So natural attractions in New Zealand attracted 89%. Film experiences, which I think they mean Lord of the Rings and that kind of stuff, 72%. But a huge, all this, the motivations to travel tended to revolve around, activities, swimming with dolphins, whale watching, sort of nature-based stuff. So I was really surprised by that. And there must be ways that we in the South Asia can plug into, those preferences. New Zealand's looking to really grow that in the future, and they're seeing, a lot of interest. So that's got to be an opportunity that we can pick up on. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll now actually open the floor to some of the, if anybody of the hoteliers want to share on how they are engaging with this new dynamic of the domestic traveler as well as international traveler. There are many here. Oh, sorry, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, sorry, just one other point that I wanted to make about how travel has really changed in the last 5 years is, the infrastructure that's coming up on the roads is astonishing, right? So now destinations are far more accessible than they were before, which is, on the one hand, a really good plus point. In some ways, you miss driving through the villages and seeing all that kind of thing. But, the accessibility for getting people from, A to B to C to D has really improved. The downside of that is what it's doing to destinations with the Indian crowd. So, Mohan and I were talking earlier that, Ranthambore, you now either go for wildlife or a wedding.
Yeah.
Because with Ranthambore, with the road is so accessible now, it's made Ranthambore so accessible, massive hotels are coming up and it's turning into a wedding destination. So you also have to, watch what's happening with the accessibility and how that is actually changing destinations. Because if you're sending people on a lovely wildlife destination and there's a great big wedding blasting out next door, it alters the whole experience.
I mean, I think the wedding is a whole different thing that is uniquely Indian, and it is, I think, throwing sustainability out of the window. That's a different paradigm. And if you get into the wedding zone...
No, see, we have to keep in mind that there are a lot of inconveniences that a traveler has to go through, whether we like it or not. Sound is one. You may be in the most remote place in India,
absolutely.
but there could be even a small wedding happening with loudspeakers blaring. I mean, that's kind of, that's a reality, you have to face.
Even in Rosier, there'll be a party happening with one loud party.
Exactly. We may say that, okay, time limit to play music is 10. But by 10 p.m., the Westerners have already gone to sleep and they want to go on a safari, let's say, and wake up at 4 a.m. And if there's still music playing till 10 p.m., it is a problem. I mean, we have to face it. So, what can we do about it? I don't know. Probably give them earplugs and say, boss, sorry, but you have to wake up in the morning at 4 a.m.
No, I would, actually, that's a great segue. I would love to get some boutique hoteliers to share their perspective on how they are dealing with this new dynamic. Otherwise, I'll put them on the spot. There are many here. So I'll come to you. You are my favorite guinea pig.
Thank you. I was smiling widely when you were talking about overcrowded city because the answer is come east and come to those other destinations that don't have the crowd. For us, it works beautifully. I had so many clients coming in November to Calcutta from Delhi and Mumbai, and they were like, this fresh air and blue skies. And I was like, exactly. You all thought Calcutta was the polluted, overcrowded, busy city. And I've just walked the streets with so many guests, and it's beautiful, it's friendly, it's empty, and it isn't that frantic city. So that's the answer. India is huge, and so many of us are sitting over here with destinations that need the travelers, and we can offer that, even with the local village wedding, which becomes part of the experience.
Thank you so much. John, where's John? You're going to talk to me. you keep quiet.
John
and then
is the man.
Sanjay Malabar.
Well, you put me on a spot. Yes, so to go with the panel's conversation, which talked about how there is domestic clientele as well as international clientele, and you see many reasons to believe that they don't go along very well. I mean, my exposure in our property with Indian clients coming in was 2023. So we are up in the hills in Kerala and Munnar. So we've been running this place, which is a cardamom plantation, for about 30 years.
Oops.
So yes, so in 2023 is when we really saw an international market and a domestic market coming together. And I've been hearing of stories up in the north where you have wedding parties and how that disturbs the general experience for a leisure traveler. But on the flip, what I saw as an advantage was very often travel is also about meeting with people. I would agree with Philippa as how you find your clientele by saying, giving enough information or giving enough reasons to probably even say no to be coming to you is a good way to start. But once you've got that, and I think imagine a traveler who comes to India and is able to see eye to eye with a counter guest who's from India. I think the experience is far more than what often a traveler in India feels very sterile, because you walk into hotels which have more Europeans than Indians. You are in an environment which is very controlled. To really access Indians in a hotel where you have similar-minded people, I think it enhances an experience. So that's one plus that I was finding of how Indians and international were coming in. The rest of the problems of, yes, we are a large country with a large population, but isn't that a problem which Barcelona also faces with a crisis of a lot of travelers coming in, even the locals finding it difficult? So any city which is good to live in is a great place to visit. So getting that organized certainly is required. Indians can do with a little bit of civility, so that I do not know how to get to it, but I think the country is evolving, the people are evolving. So that's soon to come. But the worry of over-tourism, I think, how do we find that balance? I think there are more questions than real solutions. We will have to all think about it. We would want more people to travel in, but when more people travel in, these are footprints that we leave behind. So I don't have an answer there, but yes, to move on the mic to somebody who's more knowledgeable to this. Yeah.
No, but I do think that, John, the reason why you find a nice semblance of people who would like to meet each other is because you haven't diluted your storytelling for your property. So you are attracting a certain kind of traveler who would, so there's no noise, and, and that is why the meeting of the minds is very nicely done. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Or instead of going that negative route, just stick to what you are doing. Just be true to what you're offering, and that will also attract the right kind of, you don't have to put off the AC to not get some people, right? So it has to be just, this is what I stand for, and this is why I'm attracting a few people. And they're the right kind of people, I guess.
Minhas, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. So hi, my name is Minhas, and I'm a writer and a curator who also works with travel. I represent organizations like the Smithsonian, Nat Geo, and TCS, which does private jet tours. And my question actually comes to the experiences that we offer. I'm also a travel designer, and I write websites. And this is more of a comment and a question to people who sell the travel experiences as well as hotels. I recently did a website, and obviously I couldn't travel to each of the hotels that I was writing about. A lot of it was research from the internet or calling them up. And in 10 minutes time, it was pretty standard. Like if it was a property in a rural area, there's going to be a village walk. There's going to be something. But I understand that hotels have their limitations, but as a museum specialist living in India, which is such a rich culture, I feel that we have not offered what we can. We don't offer what we have in this country, because when I do museum curation, we are picking up, even from the remotest part of India, amazing things that we can offer to guests. And even at the highest end, where the jet tour, we are paying so much of money, like it's almost $100,000 is the cost of the tour, or the Smithsonian, which is very, slightly intellectual. What I feel sad, because I come from the museum world, is that we offer very token experiences. We'll offer a block print, just set up a table, give you some fabric, do some stamping, but we are not telling you the rich history, that there is not one kind of block printing. So I feel that there is a kind of an intellectual laziness in us. There is a kind of a moral laziness in us, because we do it as tokenism. And that's very sad, because actually, I also work in social development. In every sector, we are only doing tokenism. I think, for me, this being here has been a very interesting experience, which opens me up to realize that we need to do a lot more, So that's more of an
I
observation.
beg to differ a little bit with what you just said. I'm sorry, it is not intellectual laziness at all. You have a
Maybe
person
it
who's
is
sitting
more-
right next to you, Shilpa, and I think, Shilpa, you should step in here.
No, it might be monetary also.
Let me
Yeah.
finish. You
Yeah.
finished what
Yeah.
you had to say. So, yes, I may agree with you slightly on what you said, that we need to go a little deeper and explain, let's say, a particular art or a craft. And I think there are people who do that. It is just that it's also a matter of personal interest, how much interest you take in showcasing or highlighting or talking about, let's say, something like you mentioned about block printing, for example.
Yes,
I know what exactly you mean, but it's not that people are not doing it. It's just that it's a question of also creating that awareness as to if there is a certain type of block printing that happens in Sanganer, then there is a different kind of block printing that happens in, let's say, in Gujarat or wherever it is. So it's an evolving thing, but it will happen.
And
I think I'd like
yes,
to
Shilpa
to chip in.
Okay, I have a lot to say on the subject. As a craft, textile design, and F&B professional, I think my approach to travel, which I've been doing for the last 14 years, really comes from going beyond what I call staged experiences, right, which cater to the larger tourism fraternity. I mean, I have zero tolerance for staged experiences, and I don't feel the need to go there at all, because in the work that we do, for example, in this space, we're able to leverage my professional networks that come from 35 years of being in the sector, being in the culinary space, being in the fashion and design and craft and textile space. I have to say that authenticity, comes at a cost, which compromises on travel companies' ability to make money. And that's a big problem, right? To your question that you posed earlier on in the panel, where a staged block printing experience will always cost a fraction of a real block printing experience in a design house, right? There's no comparison between the two. But the truth is that there's a reason we're here, there's a reason we offer what we do, and in an industry which is largely used to, Minaz's words, laziness, it's some, or tokenism at one level, we're used to winging it. I'm not interested in talking to audiences who are used to this. Now, the truth is that in a post-COVID world, international audiences and discerning Indian travelers don't want token experiences. They can tell the difference between one and the other. And that has really changed the very fabric of experiential travel in our country. I mean, I feel really good and proud of the fact that a discerning Indian traveler actually pushes our boundaries. They know food. They know food in a way that none of our international travelers, inbound tourists into the country do, right? We can't give them a good experience and expect to be patted on the back for an excellent meal, right? So actually, I mean, I'm grateful to our domestic audiences, which are only about 35, 40% of our work. Grateful to them for constantly making us raise the bar on every experience that we curate and deliver for them, because that then also gets offered to our international travelers. So you see, I mean, over the last 1 hour, I've heard about how Indian travelers are really a pain in the ass. I don't agree with that at all, because I don't think we can look at them with one lens. There's a different breed everywhere. There is the budget traveler who's constantly looking for deals and shopping around for good reason. That breed exists everywhere in the world. There is one who wants value and experiences, but has a budgetary constraint. I bend over backwards for people who have the sensibility but not the money. Because sometimes catering to people who have all the money and no sensibility can also be a very soulless experience. Okay. And some of my conversations with the hoteliers over yesterday was, how do you help us bridge the gap between affordability and aspiration in terms of the reality of the experiences on the ground? So there's a lot. I mean, the one overarching message I want to leave this group with is really that authenticity comes at a cost, and we've got to find a way to build that into our offerings in a way that it gives the best representation of who we are as a country, as a nation, as people, you know, to the people who come and travel here. Sorry, I've taken too long.
No, I completely,
Right.
I think.
So,
yeah.
and I think that's one of the reasons I brought up her point about how to create some, monetize the experience part, because that is becoming also important, so people see value in that. Right?
So, yeah, I wanted to tell Minhas's point. Sorry, you're trying to say something. I'll just finish your point. It's more of, less of laziness, more of actually believing that the authenticity that comes at a cost is worth my investment. Okay. As a hotelier, as a travel designer, as a whatever. So once you've seen what I guess Shilpa has seen, that a discerning traveler will pay for an authentic experience, you will go all out to create it and sell it and make that, and it's joy all around. I mean, the person who's created it, the person who's experiencing it. But I think there's a starting problem where hotels, especially in the, you know, in the dispersed areas, they don't see the value in it, so they don't begin to create it. Plus, textiles is one thing, music, art, there's no end to it. So they don't know, okay, if I create one, what if somebody asks for something else? If I create something in music, somebody will come about, you know, something about, you know, I want to do physical movement, or I want, whatever it may be. But start somewhere, you know, that's the thing that we all have to kind of focus on.
So, yeah, so I think she... Shobha, please.
So, having been promoting experiential travel for a long time, a lot of this conversation is about money, time, and interest. I guess most travel companies, a lot of travel companies, are, and also generalists and specialists. So Shilpa can do very, very immersive, expensive experience because she's a specialist, and people go to her because they want the textile experience. But for a generalist, for a experiential generalist travel company, they want to put in as many experiences as possible. I led a couple of trips this summer. In fact, you take a general traveler into a very specific and very immersive experience, their disinterest is quite shameful for me. I mean, I'm embarrassed to have a bunch of people not interested in the music experience that's being laid out to them.
Yeah.
So yes, just very quickly, almost agreeing with you. Absolutely, Shilpa, good, you know, people will pay for good experiences. But I've, again, a personal anecdote, but recently we do a textile and tribal community tour in Gujarat and Kutch and things. One day towards the end of it, we were in Pushina area, very rural area up near the Rajasthan border. They have a wonderful pottery, they have horse temples, these pottery horses. We went to see this, and then the guide was like, I'm sending the vehicle to the other side, and we're just going to walk from this tree temple collection, and we're going to go to the farmhouses, and we're going to walk through the wheat fields to get there. I should think most people commented that that was the highlight of their trip. I mean, definitely that day, but of that trip, because they were in a very authentic, we were passing the school kids going to school, we were chatting with them, we were seeing the sister plaiting the hair of the other one. And it's basically, this is what you drive past as a tourist. You look out at the highways, you see these villages. What actually people want to do is get into them and just work with them. And I know Philippa and I we're on the same level on this one. But that was just a personal experience. And without doubt, I mean, there was one gentleman who's traveled to India many times. He had never done something like that. And for him, it was, he's quite elderly, he's quite, difficult, but he was just overwhelmed by that one incredibly simple thing. So yes, you say village walks, and we all go, oh God, everybody does village walks. Actually done right. Because we then sat and had chai, which again, we had sent the chai stuff ahead, so it wasn't, we knew it was going to be safe and all of these kind of things. But that is the kind of experiences that actually people do want, and it costs nothing.
I think when Shebra and I were sort of chatting, we were both with groups at the same time. And I think it comes down to, I'd insisted with this American agent I was leading this group for that I would do it as long as there were 3 nights in each destination. Less than that, I wasn't interested. I know Shebra was leading a very different one, which was sort of 2 nights, 2 nights. And I think we try, and I know the client demands it. I know when the client's asking for an itinerary, if they see a free half hour or morning or something, they panic, what are we going to do? And I think we sort of try and pack itineraries all the time. The feedback from the group I had was, well, actually, we've had no free time. But because we had 3 nights in each place, on the way back from safari, they spotted a village and went, oh, can we just get off here and have a wander around the village? Or, in Gwalior, they said, actually, can we move the fort to tomorrow? Can we just go shopping in the market? And we try and plan, and experiences are really important, but actually the feedback at the end of the trip were the things that they had the time to put in because it was a more spread out itinerary with time, were the highlights of their tour. Like Emma said, it's that surprise village walk, it's that going into a market. So, I think it all comes down to sort of giving people time to just go and discover a little bit on their own as well.
I think we've taken, people, what are people who have not spoken, sorry. Yeah, the last comment, because I know this can go on.
I'm going to be very quick. I'm Melissa, I'm from Experiential Travel Group in the UK. I think there's 2 issues that you're talking about here. One is domestic tourism and the other is over-tourism. I just wanted to say that we operate in 12 or 13 different countries across Asia. We're an Asia specialist, and the experiences that people have in India blow them away more than they do in every other country. So I just wanted to say we book a lot of the hotels here, and I think they're all doing an amazing job, and I see it in the feedback. I read all our customers' feedback, and India the experiences here blow them away more than they do in other countries. So I just thought there was something positive to throw in.
On that note, I shall end this fabulous conversation, which had I think the one takeaway, having seen all these fantastic entrepreneurs doing this amazing thing, is that they all are kind of at it for a long time, do their best, and we just keep going forward. And I love your closing. I think we just have to be at it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Loveleen, Mohan, Philippa, and Lisa for a fabulous session. Thank you.